Lewis Hamilton's current form is becoming increasingly unsustainable for himself, Ferrari, and Formula 1. We're 9 races into Hamilton's dream Ferrari switch, and it's been a real rollercoaster of emotions that's veered from immense joy to utter dejection. Hamilton is one of, if not the most emotionally expressive F1 drivers.
And this time the shock did not come from a daring overtake on track, but from words that cut straight through Ferrari's carefully built wall of optimism. His brutally honest statement before the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort has revealed deep cracks in the Scuderia 2025 dream project. So what can this mean for Ferrari's season and Hamilton's own future? And does this moment truly have the potential to rewrite the story of the year? Let's find out in today's episode. When Ferrari signed Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion with 103 race wins and 104 pole positions, it was sold as the dawn of a new era. The plan was simple on paper. Hamilton would join Charles Leclerc to form a dream partnership. Fred Vasseur promised that the SF25 would be the car to finally take Ferrari out of the long shadow of Red Bull. Sponsors poured millions in anticipation of glory. Fans were promised a season where Ferrari would no longer fight for third, but for first. But as the calendar turned to the Dutch Grand Prix, round 15 of the season, the fairy tale has turned into a nightmare. The Hungarian Grand Prix before the summer break already gave hints of this brewing storm. Leclerc stunned everyone with Ferrari's first pole of 2025, showing flashes of speed the SF25 was hiding. But while one side of the garage celebrated, the other side felt only despair. Hamilton qualified 12th, his worst Saturday since 2018 in terms of raw position. He admitted to feeling useless, even joking about Ferrari considering a replacement. That comment was not simply a throwaway line. It showed his deep frustration with the car's unpredictability. Ferrari hoped that 3 weeks of summer break would reset the mood, but engineering problems are not solved with rest. The main weakness of the SF25 lies in its ride height compromise. After the plank wear issue earlier in the year, Ferrari raised the car by about 7 millimeters. That sounds small, but in Formula 1 aerodynamics, it is massive. That change reduced downforce by nearly 15% in some corner entries, stripping Hamilton of one of his key strengths, braking late and rotating sharply into turns. Without that tool, his confidence dipped. The SF25 now has flashes of speed but cannot maintain a consistent performance window across stints. At tracks where ride height sensitivity is punished, Ferrari looks lost. And now comes Zandvoort, one of the most punishing circuits in modern F1. With 2 banked corners pushing cars to loads above 4.7 G, endless sequences of medium-speed turns and little margin for error, this track amplifies weaknesses brutally.
What did you think? Oh my God, what a rush. A lot bigger horse than I've been on. Yeah. What a rush.
McLaren's MCL 60B and Red Bull's RB21 are expected to thrive, thanks to their ability to generate mechanical grip independent of ride height. Mercedes too has made progress with its floor concept, while Aston Martin brought a new upgrade package worth about 0.25 seconds per lap. Against this, Ferrari risks falling into a no man's land. Too slow for podiums, but too inconsistent to defend against midfield teams like Alpine, who shocked many by scoring double points in Hungary. That is why Hamilton's statement carried such force. He vowed to keep fighting even in difficult times. At first, it sounded like a motivational call, but in reality, it was a warning to Ferrari. Hamilton is saying he will give his all, but only if the team matches his intensity. Inside Maranello, this clashed directly with Fred Vasseur's approach. The Frenchman has urged calmness and patience. He even suggested Hamilton exaggerates the car's flaws when speaking publicly. To outsiders, that sounded like damage control. To insiders, it looked like a quiet rebuke of Hamilton's aggressive push. The tension is not just between driver and team boss. Charles Leclerc plays a crucial role here too. On Saturdays, Leclerc has outqualified Hamilton 9 times out of 14 so far, showing that in one lap pace, he can extract more from the SF25. But on Sundays, inconsistency strikes. Out of those 14 races, Hamilton has finished ahead in 6, despite starting further back. The contrast shows a split garage. One driver wants a sharp, pointy front end. The other wants a stable rear. Ferrari engineers have failed to satisfy either, resulting in a compromise setup that pleases no one. Zandvoort's layout makes this split worse. The car must handle both aggressive front-end demand through turns 2 and 3 and rear stability through the banked turn 14 leading to the main straight. Ferrari simulations suggest a setup that suits Hamilton could cost Leclerc over 0.3 seconds per lap in stability. But a setup for Leclerc could make Hamilton almost unable to attack corners confidently. Ferrari has spent hundreds of simulator hours trying to balance this. Still, reports suggest early numbers show Ferrari could be between 0.5 to 0.7 seconds per lap slower than Red Bull in long runs. That is the kind of gap Hamilton cannot tolerate. This is where the deeper story lies. Hamilton has doubled his simulator time after the summer break, personally testing brake maps, tire warm-up sequences, and corner entry balances. He is pushing Ferrari to be bold, to gamble with aggressive setups, even if it risks tire wear or further plank penalties. His logic is simple. Ferrari cannot close a 0.7 second gap by playing safe. Only risk can bridge that margin. But Vassar resists. He sees the bigger picture of Ferrari's 5-year project. He fears that desperation setups could cost them points, finishes, valuable data, and damage the long-term growth of the SF25's philosophy. The Dutch Grand Prix now becomes a pivotal test not just for Ferrari's car, but for its unity as a team. If Ferrari gambles,
Hamilton's presence has value beyond marketing. Even a strong P4 or P5 could show that Ferrari is moving in the right direction. But if Ferrari plays safe, qualifies outside the top 6, and struggles again on Sunday, the damage could be immense. For Vassar, questions will intensify. He took charge of Ferrari in January 2023. Since then, the team has scored only 4 wins in 2.5 seasons. Compare that to Red Bull's 38 in the same time, and McLaren's 7 since mid-2023. For Hamilton, the bigger question is his own future. He left Mercedes on the promise of an 8th world championship with Ferrari. If by mid-2026, Ferrari is still struggling to crack podiums, does Hamilton stay until the end of his 3-year deal, or does he walk away? The scale of expectation is huge. Ferrari has not won a driver's title since 2007, 18 years ago. For perspective, when Kimi Räikkönen took that crown, Hamilton had not even finished his rookie season. Now, Hamilton is a veteran of 322 Grand Prix starts. He knows his window is closing. Every wasted season at Ferrari is another year lost. The pressure is also felt by Ferrari's factory. About 1,100 staff members work on the F1 program in Maranello. The budget cap of $135 million means resource allocation is crucial. If Hamilton and Leclerc cannot agree on development direction, those millions could be misused. Already, Ferrari has spent around $9 million on floor upgrades in 2025, yet performance gains are estimated at only 0.15 seconds per lap. Compare that to McLaren, who spent $6 million for nearly 0.4 seconds of gain. The efficiency gap is clear. All of this converges on Zandvoort. If Ferrari shows courage, it could spark a revival story. If they fail, the season narrative changes completely. At the same time, McLaren and Ferrari were closing the gap, with Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc both regularly challenging Verstappen. Perez became the easiest scapegoat for Red Bull's difficulties, and even though the RB20 was still one of the fastest cars, his inability to consistently deliver podiums left Red Bull with no choice but to replace him. The irony is that what followed after Perez's departure has actually boosted his reputation. Red Bull's second seat curse returned in full force. Yuki Tsunoda was given a chance.
Alongside him, Liam Lawson, who impressed in 2023 during a short substitute stint, also took the wheel for a few races. But between the two of them, the combined tally in the 2025 season so far has been only 7 points. Tsunoda managed 2 points in Bahrain, 1 in Miami, and another 4 across different rounds, including a sprint result. Lawson, who only had a couple of chances, failed to add much more. This is a staggering comparison when you remember that Perez, in his worst year with Red Bull in 2024, still gathered 147 points. This statistical contrast is exactly what Perez has been pointing out in his interviews since confirming his return. He has been keen to remind media that the Red Bull second seat is a uniquely difficult position. His words show how many drivers before him, from Pierre Gasly to Alex Albon, have faced the same struggles. In fact, Gasly managed only 63 points in his half season in 2019 before being demoted, and Albon only reached 105 points in 2020. Perez is therefore correct when he says that surviving for nearly 4 full seasons in that seat shows his resilience.
Yeah, I mean, I quickly, when I saw the news come out, I sent a message to him. So I'm of course very happy for him, that he got a seat. He's a great guy, and we always got along very well. So yeah, I'm happy to see him back on the grid.
What is even more interesting is the way Perez frames his mental strength. He admitted that the pressure was immense, and that he sometimes had to make himself believe things that were not entirely realistic, just to keep going. Perez also made a sharp point about the media. He argued that for years he was heavily criticized, yet when other drivers took the same car, they struggled even more. This is why he believes he has nothing left to prove. In his view, his record already shows that he was the most successful Red Bull teammate Verstappen ever had, and no one since has managed to do better. Looking at the numbers, this claim has truth. Verstappen's teammates since 2016 have all struggled. Ricciardo left because he felt Verstappen had the team's full backing. Gasly and Albon were removed after failing to cope. Perez lasted longer than any of them and secured 5 wins, 35 podiums, and more than 800 points for Red Bull during his tenure. Now that he is joining Cadillac, Perez presents his return not as an attempt to redeem himself, but as a chance to enjoy the sport again. He has stated clearly that he did not want his Formula One story to end the way it did in 2024. For a driver who debuted back in 2011, spent more than a decade racing, and built his reputation on resilience, it is understandable that he wants a more fitting conclusion. Cadillac provides that opportunity. The team's ambition, backed by General Motors, is not small. They want to establish themselves as a competitive new force, and hiring experienced drivers like Perez and Valtteri Bottas is a statement of intent. There is, however, still the challenge of expectations. Perez may say he has nothing to prove, but in reality, Formula One is always about proving something. If he is beaten soundly by Bottas, who himself was sidelined after his years with Mercedes and Alfa Romeo, then the narrative will shift again. People will ask whether Perez was ever really that strong, or whether he was simply in the right place at the right time. Bottas too has something to fight for. The Finnish driver collected 67 podiums and 10 wins with Mercedes, but since leaving them, he has struggled in the midfield, rarely scoring points. His last podium came in 2021. Adding to this situation is the curious case of Bottas's penalty. At the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2024, he received a grid penalty that he never got the chance to serve because he did not race again before leaving Alfa Romeo. Now, more than 12 months later, new rules suggest that such penalties should expire after a year, but this clause only applies going forward. As a result, Bottas may still have to serve that penalty in the opening race of 2025 in Melbourne. If so, it will be a bizarre footnote in Formula One history, as it means Cadillac would begin their project already handicapped by an old technicality. Yet even here, Perez's presence is useful. If Bottas is dropped back on the grid, Perez will be the one expected to carry the team's hopes in that race. But what do you think about this situation? Comment down thoughts right now. And while you're down there, Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well.